Welcome everybody. We're going to we wish everybody thank you for being here. And first, a little bit of housekeeping. Please silence your cell phones. We've got a lot of electronics going on here tonight, so if everybody please silence your cell phones. And then I'm going to call the meeting to order right now. And I'm going to do roll call. Member Campbell.
Here.
Member Quarter.
Here.
Member Hendricks.
Here.
Member Wright.
Here.
Member Smith.
Here.
Member Verska.
Here.
The record will reflect that Member Black is currently absent, but we understand she's on her way. Alternate Member McDonald.
Here.
Alternate Member McCarty.
Here.
Thank you. And again, we have, and we also have here tonight, we have liaisons. Liaison Liz McNabb from the Parks and Rec Commission. And I think we will be having some other liaisons showing up here shortly. The alternate members and the liaisons, we wish you to actively participate in the discussions, but you are not voting members when we have a quorum here tonight, which we do. Thank you. And so for now, we will go ahead and turn it on over.
Ready?
Yep.
Does everyone know what?
Okay, we're going to actually Skype in City Manager Tom Hatch and Mayor Pro Tem Sandra Guinness. They're up in Sacramento right now for the Liga conference meeting. And so they have some comments they would like to share with us.
So you can go a little more, I was gonna say down. Point
Like
down.
a tiny bit back.
Hi, Tom.
Hello?
You are live with the committee.
All right. Hello, everybody. We're sorry about this. We're all up here in Sacramento working hard on all your behalf. And we're at a League of California Cities conference, learning and preparing ourselves to do more good work for you. So, but we all wanted to be there. We were even debating about whether coming up tomorrow to be there. And then this idea popped up saying Mayor Pro Tem Guinness came up with this idea, and we're giving it a try. So bear with us a little bit. So just real quick, with us is Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Guinness. I'm Tom Hatch, the city manager, and we have Justin Martin, our Parks and Community Services Director, and Raja Setherman, our Public Services Director, and also with us is Dan Baker, the assistant to the city manager. So we are here, and we're wanted to say hello and talk about a few things to kind of kick off this important group. Clearly, Fairview Park is important to you. Clearly, Fairview Park is important to the community and also to the city council and staff as well. Tonight, we wanted to hit on a variety of different issues. Sandy and I are going to kind of tag team on some of these to tell you about some things that kind of set the stage for the good work that you're going to do. First, I'm going to talk about kind of some of the things that we've been doing to lead up to what you're doing and the creation of your group. Sandy's going to talk about some of your role and her hopes and expectations for you folks. I'm going to talk about some of the projects that we currently have underway, and ask as our liaison to the Vector Control District to tell you about some mosquito issues that are happening, and then I'll conclude with some final comments. It's going to take a few minutes, and bear with us, but I think it'll be good information to kind of set the stage. So first of all, the actions that have been taken just in the last 5 or 6 months, we wanted to highlight a few of those. The City Council is committed to supporting your efforts. And number one thing they did was committed $1 million towards Fairview Park that is accessible to you and to the community for a variety of different projects that we want to look at, or other things that we may need as a committee and as a team. The city council entered into a 2-year contract with a biologist company and a expert for advising and monitoring and maintenance educational activities at Fairview Park. We've created a new position, the Fairview Park Administrator position, kind of brought that back, and I think you've had the opportunity to say hello to Cynthia, and we'll introduce her in a minute. And finally, staff on a regular basis is going to hold interdepartmental meetings between police department, Parks and Recreation, the city attorney's office, a variety of different groups to ensure that we're coordinating well as a staff as we support your activities. And with that, I want to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Guinness to talk about the committee.
Well, first up, I really want to thank you all for being there, and also thank you for volunteering. And I'm just really excited to see us make a fresh start on a Fairview Park committee. That it's a group that's committed to implementing the Fairview Park Master Plan, which is part of what your reason for existence is. What we really are hoping to be doing is providing advice to the City Council regarding implementation of the Fairview Park Master Plan, and providing advice to the Council regarding how the elements in the Master Plan relate to Measure AA, how new proposals for activities or improvements in Fairview Park relate both to the Master Plan and Measure AA. We would like to see an annual report to the Council describing the progress on implementing the Master Plan, and obviously staff's going to be most of the heavy lifting on that, but we'll be looking for your help. Which brings us to another thing. You'll be looking at grant applications, recommending approvals or whatever for applicate grants, partnerships, volunteer activities. And one of the things that I would really like to see this committee do is take a real leadership role in volunteer activities for Fairview Park, and a leadership role in encouraging others to volunteer. And I'm hoping to see some hands-on activity too from members of the committee out there. I know some of you have already been out there planting plants and pulling weeds, and for that I congratulate you and thank you. And another activity would be development of comprehensive interpretive guidelines and signage program to address the various resources, because a lot of us talk about the biology, and there's a lot that's been a topic of great discussion, particularly since U.S. Fish and Wildlife has been so closely involved with the park. But we also have extremely unique cultural resources out there going back many, many millennia. And they're unique. And we have things out there that you can't find it anywhere else. And so we'll be looking to the committee for guidance on that as well. And once again, thank you for stepping up to volunteer, and I really look forward to working with you. And now I'll hand it back to Tom.
Yes. Just wanted to highlight a couple projects that are currently underway that have been discussed and highlight a few of those. The first one is just simply acknowledging that the resurfacing project was recently completed. The Fairview Park parking lot was resurfaced. It needed it. It was about a $220,000 improvement, and it looks a lot nicer, and it will further protect cars and protect that parking lot for the long term. Also, the city hired a consultant to assist with the vernal pool restoration. Clearly, that needs to be done appropriately and well, and it's a long-term project, and we need expert advice, and we've started to get that advice, and there'll be obviously many discussions about vernal pools with this group in the future. Also, we are going out to bid with a fencing project to protect the vernal pools. This probably should have been done many, many years ago, if not decades ago, but now we're going out to bid with that fencing project, and have got approval from U.S. Fish and Wildlife for that, and that will be moving forward. An interesting note is that on the piece of the vernal pool or vernal marsh that is next to Parsons School, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is clearly saying that with the heavy rains, we got a better understanding of where the depth and largeness of the vernal pools and vernal marsh in that area, and we will have to be fencing off part of the gravel parking lot that currently is across the street from Parsons Elementary School. In addition, that buffer zone there, that area will need a buffer, and we're under discussions with them about how extensive that might need to be, and it might need to be that all of the parking that is currently in that gravel area will need to be fenced off to further protect the vernal marsh in that immediate area. And that's the final determination from that from U.S. Fish and Wildlife is coming shortly, and that'll be incorporated right along with the bid for the fencing plan for the vernal pools, and that'll be accomplished in the next just few months, if not sooner. Obviously, we're also evaluating the impacts from Measure AA, excuse me. There were several capital projects that were already underway and being designed, including the turnaround at Pacific Avenue and including a drainage project along Nancy Lane and at the end of Pacific Avenue there. In addition, there were several trails grants that the city had obtained, and some of those grants would need to be evaluated in terms of can they move forward with the language in Measure AA. And so there's plenty to discuss there, but we're getting advice from legal counsel on those issues, as well as the staff is working with interested parties like residents at Pacific Avenue about resolving some of their concerns and issues that they're currently having. But we don't have any definite answers on all of those issues, but we need to fully respect Measure AA as we move forward. And so you'll be hearing more about that in the next few weeks, if not sooner. And with that, I wanted to turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem Guinness to tell you about more about mosquitoes.
Well, there are some really fun, exciting things ahead as the park is restored, as we enhance the user experience out there to help people better understand the resources. And so it should be pretty fun and exciting. But there's also challenges. And one of the big challenges right now is mosquitoes. The residents of Swan Drive held a meeting. Mr. Porter probably heard a lot about it from his neighbors. Is probably hearing a lot about this topic from his neighbors. But Councilmember Steve and I met with the residents of Swan Drive, and we looked at different strategies. Some of these are things that we've been working with Vector on for a while. In the short term, there's going to be additional trapping, that the city's going to purchase some traps to capture the mosquitoes that are plaguing the people on Swan Drive. And there's two types of mosquitoes. Well, actually there's a whole bunch, but in that area, there's two primary types. There's house mosquitoes that come from the storm drains, that come from saucers in your backyard and so forth. And then there's tule mosquitoes that come from the ponds. The house mosquitoes are a much more efficient carrier of disease, but the tule mosquitoes can carry disease. They don't do it as prevalently and they're not as efficient, but they still could be a source of something like West Nile. So one of the things about the trapping will be not only to reduce the mosquitoes in the yard, but we'll get some good counts on the types of mosquitoes that are in the yards too. And then long term for the ponds, we're looking at maintaining the drainage. We have to make sure the water's flowing properly. Are we clearing the overgrowth as much as we should? What about control of algae? So there are some maintenance issues which the city is working on, and actually has been working on for a while. And there are also updates. Bart McBia has been working diligently on this, and he has posted a summary on the Fairview, under our portion of the city webpage that deals with Fairview Park. So we're hopeful we will be able to solve this, but we may be turning to this committee on a future agenda for some thoughts and advice, because in the extreme, we may be looking at, depending on how bad mosquitoes get, and if we start getting, say, day-biting mosquitoes or something, how extreme we have to go on reevaluating the ponds and possibly re-engineering them. So now I will turn it back to, am I turning it back to Tom, Justin?
Just a couple more items and we'll let you get started. Thanks for your patience on this. Another item that we wanted to mention was we also heard from U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the events that occur at Fairview Park. As you know, over the years, kind of variety of different events at Fairview Park. Some of those have impacted the wildlife at the park. We had been moving forward to reduce those events, and over the years we have not allowed new events at Fairview Park because of that concern. But there's currently 4 events that still occur, that have been occurring at Fairview Park, that we're concerned about, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife is concerned about. One of those is the annual Costa Mesa Community Run. Another one is a run that's called the Estancia 5K Pancake Run. It's been a long-term tradition of Estancia High School. In addition, we have the summer concert event and the fish fry, the Lions Fish Fry that occurs at Lions Park. In short, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife has recommended that those events, those last 4 events, do not occur at Fairview Park. And so we're looking at what other kind of mitigation measures could be taken to potentially still allow them there, but we're struggling with that. And the likelihood is that those 4 events may need to be relocated in the future and not occur at Fairview Park. And so, again, we'll wait for some final information and determination from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but we wanted to give you a heads up on that issue and what's happening with that, because that we'll have to take steps and measures to move those good events and do some other things to help support those events, but also clearly protect the habitat and the wildlife that's out there as well. And let's see, and then finally, we wanted to also acknowledge that you're not doing it tonight, but at a future meeting, you'll be appointing a chair and a vice chair to help lead your group. And with that, we also wanted to introduce Cynthia DeAugusta as well as Bart Mejia. They're going to be the kind of the 2 staff liaisons. They're going to be the key support staff for you on a regular basis. And we wish them luck, and I will let Cynthia and Bart do their self-introductions to you. And we know you have an agenda tonight, kind of a shorter agenda, and we know it must be a little frustrating. We're just giving you all this information, and you can't really talk about it. So we already apologize for that ahead of time, but there'll be time to talk about all these issues moving forward. But anything else?
And also, as you will learn later in the meeting, under the Brown Act, you wouldn't be able to talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
So, even though, if I discuss everything right now, there are limitations to the Brown Act.
Yes, and with that, we all wish you good luck, and you've got our full support, and we're excited about helping you in doing your good work ahead, and good luck with the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So not perfect, but for those that were those at the meeting last night, way better than last night.
Yes.
And they're in Vegas, you said?
Sacramento.
No, exactly.
All right, thank you. I think now we will just turn it over to Cynthia.
Yes, yes. Welcome, everyone, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm Cynthia, as Tom introduced me, and I just want to say a couple of things tonight just to introduce myself, but what I do look forward to is meeting with each of you individually and your associated organizations. So please call me and let's set up the meetings and get started on this discussion that needs to happen. Just a little bit of background. I'm a landscape architect by training and have spent my career doing projects such as Fairview in terms of my passion being helping communities engage and resolve sometimes very difficult issues with remnant landscapes, if you will, that still have a very important role in many ways in their communities. So I'm really looking forward to digging in and excited about Fairview and what we can do together. So please do call me, we'll set up some meetings. What I wanted to do tonight for you, and I'm going to hand it out first to the committee members, and then I'll make it available for public here. I think we might need a couple more down that way. I tried to summarize what Tom and Sandy were talking about in terms of all of the topics of future meetings that we're going to need to deal with. And what we've done for tonight is prioritize those based on staff's knowledge. But we asked the committee between now and our future meeting to look at these and email me if we've left anything off, if there should be a different priority that we should take these on, and then we'll bring them back to the next meeting with that discussion. Okay, and also on here is just a list of the committee meetings, it's background information, a schedule of volunteer and educational activities, special events that again were mentioned that we need to discuss, and schedule of park maintenance. So it's kind of just some basic background information for everybody to have. Do you guys want some? That will get us started on our conversations and hopefully get us going where we need to be. So thank you. I'm going to turn that over to Bart now.
Good evening, committee members. Most of you already know me. My name is Bart Mejia. I am the city engineer. I will be working together with Cynthia to help you provide technical support to you so you can make informed decisions. I will keep it short and just let you know that we have received concerns regarding the Pacific Avenue and how vehicles are turning around and some of the improvements at the end of Pacific. I want to let you know that the police department has increased efforts to monitor the activity and report to staff, as well as an item has been placed on City Council agenda for closed session where City Council will be reviewing the effects of Measure AA on the implementation of this plan and provide direction to staff. So that is the latest update that we have for Pacific Avenue. Just wanted to bring you up to speed with that. So
I had one more. I'm sorry. I had
Yeah.
one more thing. Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that we have posted on the steering committee website the summary of the mosquito. Given my newness, it will be posted by the end of the day tomorrow. It is not up there yet. Okay.
with that, back to Brenda.
Thank you. We'd like to proceed with our presentation on the Brown Act, ethics, and conflict of interest. With us tonight is our Assistant City Attorney, Tarquin Preziosi. And you all have the handouts, the hard copy handouts of the presentation to follow along. So, here's to you, Tarquin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to talk about the Brown Act and go over the basic rules that were enacted starting in 1953 that govern meetings of legislative bodies, of cities, counties, and other public agencies. At its heart, the Brown Act requires that all public agency actions be taken openly and that the deliberations be conducted openly. All meetings of a legislative body, which includes this committee, must be open and public. Generally, to determine who is subject to the Brown Act, legislative body under the Brown Act includes the governing body of a local agency, for example, the City Council, commissions, committees, or boards created by formal actions of the City Council, which includes this steering committee, and then a private corporation under certain circumstances. Importantly, under the Brown Act, what constitutes a meeting is not always self-evident. Under the Brown Act, the literal interpretation is a meeting is any congregation of a majority of the members of the legislative body in the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate upon any item within the jurisdiction. But this is not now limited to simply being physically together with the advent of technology. There are various day-to-day activities that can implicate the Brown Act. For example, emails, texts, blogs, social networking sites, telephone conversations for purpose of discussing decisions in advance, informal discussions, disclosing ex-parte communications prior to each public hearing agenda item, and serial meetings. Let me go back for a minute. In order to constitute a meeting, you have to have a majority of the legislative body present. That constitutes a meeting. This committee is composed of 7 members and 2 alternate members. If you have 7 members, you need 4 members together to form a majority of the committee to have a meeting for purposes of the Brown Act, whenever that meeting occurs. However, because you also have 2 alternates, and in the absence of a regular voting member, an alternate steps into place. So if you have 2 voting members and 2 alternate members together, that in itself can constitute a meeting under the Brown Act, which is subject to the Brown Act. Emails are specifically a thorny issue for the Brown Act. The Brown Act can be violated simply by hitting reply all. For example, if you as committee members all receive an email from a citizen regarding some matter within your jurisdiction, and an individual committee member hits replies to all, and that goes out to everyone on the committee, or a majority of the committee members, as well as the citizen who sent the email, that is a potential Brown Act violation right there. Some potential Brown Act violation, some potential Public Records Act problems that can occur. Using your own email to discuss city business may subject personal emails to disclosure. My understanding is that the city has not formally decided whether or not committee members will be given city email addresses. If and when city provides city email addresses to committee members, my office suggests that you use that solely for official business rather than your private email. Texting can create similar problems with email. Can easily be used to hold a serial meeting before or during a meeting. Serial meetings occur when one commissioner would contact another commissioner, would then contact another commissioner, etc. It's particularly important to avoid sending or receiving texts or emails to or from the public during a meeting, to or from members of the body during a meeting, or if you have a declared conflict, which requires you to recuse yourself, you cannot send emails to or from the committee on that issue that you are conflicted from. Similarly, blogging creates problems. Facebook, Twitter, newspaper comments. This has not been formally addressed by the Fair Political Practice Commission, but potential serial meetings, if a majority gets involved in blogging on the topic. For example, we have 4 committee members, and you are all blogging on a specific topic, that in itself could constitute a meeting under the Brown Act, and therefore a violation of the Brown Act, because that meeting is not open to the public. Even though other people can blog, it's still not public within a meeting of the Brown Act, and all the bells and whistles of the Brown Act have not been applied.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
On the informal discussions, is that with 4 members, or is that just between 1 and 1 even? Would that be a violation?
Well, an informal discussion between 2 members of the committee is generally not a Brown Act violation, because you do not have a majority of the members present.
So it has to be a majority?
In general, yes.
Okay, thank you.
But,
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Brenda.
But it's very common, and this is what you have to be very careful about. Kim and Alex might have an informal discussion, and then Kim, you go ahead and call Anna, and Alex goes ahead and calls Steve. Then we have a violation. So it's very easy to, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Let me give Anna a call and tell her about it. I know she's going to want to do it. So you just have to be very careful about that.
So what would you do to not violate it?
If you have a good idea and something you want the committee to discuss, then I recommend you contact Cynthia with your ideas, and then they'll agendize it, or they'll bring it up to the committee, to, if you want to agendize it for a future meeting, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
A few examples of what a meeting is not. Individual contacts or conversations. Attendance by majority of meetings at certain conferences or social events, so long as the majority does not discuss issues within their jurisdiction. Attendance at a meeting of other legislative bodies, so long as the majority does not discuss issues within their jurisdiction. For example, if you, members of the committee, were to attend the city council meeting, more than 4 or more of you, that in itself is not a Brown Act violation. However, if you discuss, while you're at that meeting, items within your jurisdiction, that is a potential Brown Act violation.
Can I interject here too?
Of course.
So if you do see at a council meeting or at a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, if more of you want to attend, we just ask that no more than 2 of you sit together. So like if you have a group of you, just separate, and we do that with council at events too. Even when you go to ceremonial events and things, we ask the council all not congregate. So just no more than 2 of you stand together, and then we don't have to worry about it, that type of thing. And the other thing is, like Mayor Pro Tem Guinness mentioned about all your volunteer events and things that might be happening. And so just be cognizant of that too. Even when you're volunteering, you can discuss what's going on at the event and the work you're doing or whatever, but please don't discuss items that will be coming up, like on future meetings and things like that.
A general rule of thumb is, even though you may not be discussing and holding a meeting together, if a group of committee members are seated together or congregated together, it creates the appearance of a violation. And it's in your best interest, the committee's best interest, and the city's best interest, just to avoid appearance of violations. The general posting requirements for agendas under the Brown Act. The agenda must be posted at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting, such as tonight, or 24 hours prior to a special meeting. The agenda must specify the time and location of the meeting, and include a brief general description of each item, as well as any closed session items, if applicable. No action may be, sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, 2
Sure.
quick questions on the previous conversation. So first is, as liaisons, we're not voting members, so we don't count in this majority. Is that right? We're just,
Well,
we're members of
you could count the majority. If, for example, only three members are present.
No, she's a liaison from the
I'm
Parks
sorry,
and Rec
I'm
Commission.
sorry, I missed
She's
it.
not alternate.
A liaison, no, you're not.
Yeah, okay.
No, you're not counted as a quorum.
Okay, and then on the, so for voting members, you talked about kind of public conversation, so writing a newspaper article or speaking at a city council meeting. Can Larry, for example, he should refrain from talking about Fairview Park issues at a city council meeting? Like, he can't speak at public comment? Is that the recommendation?
No, he can certainly speak at public comment if he wishes to. Larry, though, should be careful if the board is not giving him authority to express an opinion on behalf of the board, not to express an opinion on behalf of the board. If he wants to express an opinion as a private citizen, he's certainly entitled to do that.
Okay. Can, for voting members of this committee, speak as private citizens at a city council meeting?
Yes, if they're not, I mean, if they're speaking as individual private citizens, as long as they haven't come together and formed a
Go to
consensus
opposite corners of the room.
outside the meeting, then
Okay.
yes, they can.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Posting requirements, and I know this stuff is very exciting. No action on any item not appearing on a posted agenda. There are a few very limited exceptions. If there's a statutorily defined emergency, there is a need for immediate action, which requires a 2/3 vote if there is an immediate need for action and the need arose after the agenda was posted. Brief responses to questions or comments from the public, and brief reports by board members and staff, and requests to agendize an item for a future meeting. Those do not necessarily need to be on the agenda itself. Closed sessions are permissible only where allowed by statute. It is very highly unlikely that this committee would ever have a closed session. And however, if this committee did, for whatever reason, disclosure of any information discussed in the closed session is illegal unless that disclosure has been authorized within that closed session by majority of the board. The consequences of Brown Act violations are, first, nullification of the decision, criminal sanctions for intentional violations. It's a misdemeanor, up to 6 months in jail, under $1,000 fine. And of course, intense adverse media attention. The press is very fond of jumping on Brown Act violations. Some general best practices to keep in mind. Assume all information is public or will become public. There are generally no secrets under the Brown Act. There are no private discussions under the Brown Act where a majority of legislative body is concerned, other than in closed session. Do not discuss agency business with fellow decision makers outside public meetings. It's a general rule of thumb. Some basic motion practice, and the city clerk, of course, will jump in if I err. But a basic motion, motion to amend, it's also called a friendly amendment, or a substitute motion. The basic motion is the one that puts forward a decision for the body's consideration. For example, I move that the committee recommend that the city council approve the brine shrimp grant application of XYZ organization. That's a basic motion for something within your jurisdiction. A motion to amend, commonly known as a friendly amendment. If a member wants to change a basic motion that is before the body, they would move to amend it. I move to amend the motion to add a condition of approval requiring the nightclub be open no later than 10 p.m. Motion to amend is a motion that takes the basic motion that is before the body and seeks to change it in some way. The motion to amend gets voted on prior to the basic motion. So if a motion is made, basic motion is made, then one of the committee members wants to make a motion to amend, a friendly amendment, to add a condition. The board must vote on the friendly amendment first, whether it's going to consider the friendly amendment and adopt or not adopt the friendly amendment. Then it will go back to vote on the main motion. Similarly, substitute motions. If a member wants to completely do away with the basic motion that is before the body and put a new motion before the body, they would move a substitute motion. I move a substitute motion that would deny conditional use permit to 1705 to allow the nightclub located at 1234 Main Street. Again, the substitute motion would be voted on first, and then the main motion would be voted on. That concludes the Brown Act portion and the very rudimentary guide to parliamentary procedure. I was going to move on to advisory body basics, the role, powers, ethical considerations, conflicts of interest. Does anyone have any questions regarding the Brown Act before I do that? Okay, seeing no questions. The general role of advisory bodies is to improve the quality of city government by providing the council with resources to make better informed decisions, to serve as the eyes and ears of the council for issues that matters might otherwise not receive the attention they deserve, and improve the line of communications between the public and the council by providing more opportunities for discussions of public issues. Each city, each public agency in California is somewhat unique in the way they handle advisory bodies. Some have a plethora of advisory bodies, some have few or none. Costa Mesa is fortunate. It has a number of advisory bodies. It has a very engaged citizenry that serves on the advisory body, and the city and its discourse is much richer for it. The general powers of advisory bodies. Advisory bodies are empowered to only make recommendations to the city council or to city staff. Advisory bodies do not have supervisory authority over city employees. Employees work closely with advisory bodies. Staff members remain responsible to immediate supervisors and ultimately the city manager and council. General ethical principles, and I say this because ethics is a huge topic, some of which applies to the committee members, some of the fair political practice rules and regulations do not apply to committee members simply because they're not designated filers by the city, but generally these are all things that need to be kept in mind. The duties of an advisory body member must be performed in good faith in a manner in which a member believes to be in the best interest of the city. It is improper for any member to utilize for personal, financial gain, or otherwise self-dealing manner any information which is received by reason of said membership and is not a matter of public record. General conflicts of interest principles. No member shall have material financial interest in any contract or other transaction involving the body. The member shall promptly disclose such interest in any proposed activity. Such interest may require either the individual recusal by a member or the disqualification of the entire committee, depending on the conflict. Potential conflicts may arise when a member serves on another board within a community, within the city, and there's a clash of duties between the two positions. That is a potential, but not necessarily actual conflict. A member should avoid making public comments on council actions or public politics that might appear to represent the official position of the advisory body. Again, it's important to remember when speaking to the press, speaking to members of the public, you speak as individual citizens unless you are given authority or have discussed the specific, formal position of the board on issues. So it's important to make that distinction when you're speaking publicly, if you're speaking as an individual citizen or as a board member. Conflict of interest in contracts. Government Code Section 1090 restricts local agency officers and employees, which would include committee members, from making a contract in which they're financially interested. Now, making a contract has a very loose definition under Section 1090, but specifically 1090 states, members of the legislature, state, county, district, judicial district, and city officers and employees, again, this would include this committee and board members, shall not be financially interested in any contract made by them in their official capacity or in any body or board of which they are members, nor shall state, county, district, etc., and city officers and employees be purchasers of any sale of venues or any purchase made by them in their official capacity. Bear in mind that making a contract includes indirect participation, not just final approval. For example, if this body were in a position to make a recommendation to city council and an individual committee member had a financial interest in the subject of that contract, that in itself could and without itself would be a conflict of interest. The penalties for violation, the contract we void, it's a felony, $1,000 fine or imprisonment, and forever disqualified from holding office in California. You may have to refund any money and pay attorney's fees. We also have to forfeit goods, services, or property transferred to authority city, and post any employment benefits that you received after the violation. Now, there are a number of nuances that go into any conflict analysis. It's important that if any committee member feels they have a potential conflict, to raise that with staff at the earliest possible opportunity, and/or raising the city clerk and/or the city attorney. Each potential conflict is unique. As I said, there are a number of different nuances about direct conflicts, indirect conflicts, and all those need to be taken into account. But the basic rule that should always be followed is disclose, disclose, disclose. Because the penalties are draconian, and they're just not worth the violation. So specific questions regarding possible estimated issues or conflicts. Vendors should be reviewed with the city staff liaison, city attorney or city clerk, in advance of subject meeting or discussion, preferably as far advance as possible, rather than 2 minutes before the item is about to be heard by the board members. That, in essence, concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as a the city clerk.
What did you phone number?
Let's see. 714
Okay,
446
okay,
1400.
okay, thank you, sir.
And my email is on the city website.
I couldn't find your name, okay, so I was looking at the wrong.
It's tarquin.preziosi at
Okay,
costamesa.gov.
thank you.
Sure. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to new business item B, which is staff recommended October 11th, 2017 special meeting. Okay, Bart?
Committee members, your next regularly scheduled meeting is November 8th, 2017. However, there are a number of items that staff believes are of importance, and we request that your approval to schedule a special meeting in September, and in October 11th, to address specific items. And I'm going to give you a list. That list will not be final until we post the agenda, but the most important one is an opportunity for you to see the final layout of the vernal pool fencing that we are proposing and the effects that that would have on Fairview Park and the Fairview Park users. As you know, with the benefits of providing protection to the vernal pools, the alignment that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and our biologists have presented will have an effect on how the park it is used. For example, Harbor Soil Society utilizes some of that area that will now be off limits. The Orange County Model Engineers, and we plan to provide fencing for all of the known vernal pools at Fairview Park. That is vernal pools 1 through 7 and A, B, and C on the east side. Those are A and B on the east side. So that's one of the potential effects is our park users, as well as fire access that we need to make sure that you concur and support that, and with that understanding. And that will be, the timing for that is we're expecting to open bids on September 26th, and it takes a few weeks to get the contract together. By the time we meet, it will be about the time that we give the contractor a notice to proceed. So we want to present that to you so we can proceed with that work as soon as possible. Another item that we need to address is the determination for a couple of the CIP projects. One of them is the completion of the parking lot rehabilitation. The city manager has updated you that the paving has been completed. There is one element that was deferred until you had an opportunity to weigh in and the potential effects of Measure AA on this portion of the required project. When we rehabilitated the parking lot, it triggered the requirement to provide accessible access between the picnic shelter and the restroom, and that requires the construction of a new pedestrian path between those two facilities. Measure AA may have an impact on that, and we want to present that to you and get your recommendation. The other project that we need to address at that meeting is the Placentia Avenue Connector Trails and the associated grants that the city had received for those projects. Depending on the impacts of Measure AA on those projects, those grants may have to be returned back to the granting agencies. So with that, we request your approval to have a meeting on October 11th, a special meeting on October 11th to discuss those items.
Thank you, Mr. Mejia. At this time, is there any members of the public that just want to speak on this one item on whether to have a meeting on October 11th or not? Okay, so none. Then we will entertain a motion, please.
Make a motion for the meeting on October 11th.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. All right. At this time, we will do committee member and commissioner comments. I think it might be a good time to go around the room and introduce yourselves to each other, and then maybe say a few words about maybe why you chose to be on this committee or whatever you might want to, and then after that we will do public comments. All right, Commissioner McNabb, would you like to start?
Certainly, thank you very much. My name is Liz McNabb.
I am the Vice Chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission and was appointed in February, so I am relatively new to the position. Very honored to be here with you all this evening, and it's certainly an engaged group. I look forward to working with all of you, and I think that we can do a lot of good to help protect and preserve Fairview Park. So thank you for all being here.
My name is Bill McCarty, and I'm also honored to be part of this committee. And I want to thank the people here who put so much time into putting AA together, getting AA passed, and everything there. I don't want to mention names because I'll leave somebody out, I'm sure, but you know who you are, and you're all very appreciative of the hard work you did and everything. This is a really important measure and protecting a really important part of the city. So I'm also looking forward to getting things going and really protecting the park and turning it back into what it can be. So.
Okay, hi, I am Cynthia McDonald. I am a 40-year resident of Costa Mesa now, yeah. And raised 2 sons here, used to take them to the park, and want to see the park be utilized by the community, but also see it protected because it is such a fabulous resource. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Bikeways and Walkability Committee, and
Turns. I'd rather have my back to you. Hi, my name is Alex Reich. First, I'd like to once again thank the City Council for my appointment and for my fellow committee members and Cynthia DiCosta, right? I say it right. Fairview Park Administrator. I'm really happy to see some familiar faces also. Most of us were directly involved in the passage of Measure AA, ensuring the true survival of the park in perpetuity. As this also serves our public comments, I would like to make a brief statement. Recently, my opponent in the previous local election has made comments about me on public Facebook. Besides his documented, ill-considered, racist, and often misogynist remarks, he seems to have a lot of time to devote to the topic of me on a post where I've not even commented. I would once again like to request, both publicly and in print as I have on many occasions, invite him to debate our shared water future in a Lincoln Douglas-style debate. I'm also told it would make great must-see TV by a local prominent videographer. I now are tasked to address our challenges in this committee and with the master plan. There are issues with the current plan, and they need to be rectified. We know confusion and vagueness only breeds larger issues down the road. And finally, the City Council itself seems to have issues with getting public opinion, especially considering last night's debacle. So I move, once we're actually able to move, that we always put public comments before any other item on our agendas moving forward that includes our own comments. Finally, thank you, and I'm very excited to protect our beautiful park, not a remnant landscape, but our jewel of the city.
I don't know if I should follow that. My name is Kim Hendricks, and I love Fairview Park and have loved it for many years. And I want to do everything I can to protect it and all its natural inhabitants, and have it serve the community as it should. Thank you.
My name is Andy Campbell, and again, I'm also honored to be on this committee, and I echo most of the comments about the value of Fairview Park and the need to protect it. I'll keep it brief. Lived in Costa Mesa for 20 years, 3 boys that use the park frequently, along with my wife and my pets. And I'm a geologist, so I hope to bring some of that to the resources. There's some great features of the park that if you only knew the underlying geology, I think would make it more valuable. And also water resources in my career. I deal with fish and wildlife. I deal with vector control issues. I manage groundwater recharge basins in my current job, so I hope to bring that to the park committee as well. So thank you again for the appointment.
Hi, I'm Arliss Reynolds. Also a commissioner on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I think they've purposely separated us so we didn't confer too much. Really excited to be to get the appointment to be a liaison here. I'm excited to learn from everybody around this table, and then of course we always learn a lot from public comments. we're going to talk a lot about Measure AA. I hope that we can kind of redirect. I think 2015 and 2016 there were a lot of defensive actions for Fairview Park, right? Protect it from destructive action. And I think now with Measure AA in place, this is our chance to kind of let go of the defenses. We've got those in place and really figure out the ways to celebrate the park and focus on a lot of positive actions with the programming and the landscaping and making the roads, walkways more walkable and bikeable. So I'm excited to have that kind of positive approach and hear a lot of ideas for the park coming up.
Good. My name is Larry Corter. I've been around Costa Mesa since 1957. I've got a passion for Fairview Park that couldn't be greater. I mean, I love the place. I get reminded daily. We live on Swan. We don't have mosquitoes, but we live on Swan and face the park. Every day when I get up, I look at the park. I think it's a fantastic resource. I'm glad to see kids be able to go out there and get dirty and play in places that most cities don't have. We are very, very fortunate. I was lucky enough to help a little bit on AA. Some very passionate people involved in that. That was a great experience as well. So we got to keep this place protected, keep it like it is, not let it be developed. The word develop here is a dangerous word. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Verska. I have a passion for environmental issues. I was part of the former committee. Unlike that committee, I hope this one will not be steered in any way. I understand there has to be a framework of the things we have to address and do. However, I hope we will also be allowed to work organically and lead ourselves where we need to go. I agree with Mr. Reich that Fairview Park is definitely not a remnant landscape at all, and words are powerful, so we should be cognizant of what words we use and how we use them. And I too have some concerns about the master plan. I think even redone, it has some elements that probably might want to be looked at again. And other than that, I am grateful to be here and to contribute while I can. I look forward to the work ahead, and that's it.
Steve Smith, a 31-year resident of the city, and I'm looking forward to helping preserve and protect Fairview Park.
Thank you. All right, now we will proceed to public comments. If anybody would like to address the committee, please just come up to the podium. Please come on up, step up, please. And you can, if you wish, you can state your name. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
I don't mind. I'm Kristen Petros. I used to work for the city in the planning department for many, many years, and I was the planner that worked on the original Fairview Park master plan before there was any master plan, because we got so many different things coming at us all the time. Can I do this here? Can I do that here? And finally we came up with the idea, why don't we come up with a master plan? And it was a long, hard process with a lot of city public input, and it was a really neat process that came up with the plan. And I know it's been changed over the years, which is a good thing. But process-wise, I always have wondered whether the original conditions of approval and the mitigation measures, I've wondered if they've been followed through as pieces are implemented. And so I don't know if the committee understands that process, the Environmental Quality Act process, and that there's an annual review of the park that says, you know, we did this project and we also did the conditions of approval. We did these mitigation measures to protect whatever environmental issue there was. I would just ask that staff educate the committee about that process as they're going through the various pieces of the park. And I'm so excited that there's a new impetus to get pieces of the puzzle done. It's very exciting. Lastly, I'm now, I have been on a board called the Orange Coast River Park. If you've heard of it, it uses Fairview Park as its northernmost piece and follows down the Santa Ana River, includes the beaches in Newport and some of the beaches in Huntington Beach, and we're trying to connect all of those pieces owned by many different jurisdictions. And so I'm just going to be listening and helping as with that hat on mostly. Thank you so much.
Good evening, committee. Jay Humphrey. I just want to thank all of you for stepping up to the plate to really work to find the best absolute solutions for Fairview Park. That's what you're all dedicated to by the very title of your committee. And I look forward to lively discussions and fun times and hard decisions, but I look forward to watching and sharing with you wherever necessary. Thank you very much for coming forward to help us keep this jewel a real jewel.
Hi, I'm Rick Huffman, and I'm on the Bike and Walkability Committee, and occasionally some issues about Fairview Park come up at our committee, so we look forward to cooperating with you in any way that we can. A quick review of the topics for discussion at future meetings, and one thing that I'm concerned about is the past abuses of the park. Big areas where fill was put in, and so I would suggest that would, in the next coming year, that there'd be some active projects to remove fill and so on like that, to get it back to more of a natural state, and so that would be where I would want to put the most money and resources into correcting what's gone on there over the last 30, 40 years. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to?
Hi, everybody. I want to join Jay. Thanks you all. This is a big deal. As some of you know, a lot of you have already been on committees or commissions, and it takes a lot of time. I listened to Tarquin talk about Brown Act violations, and I'm thinking about, okay, I know a lot of you folks, and I've participated in some of the Facebook threads. And I'm wondering how we avoid the real complication of Anna chattering about something and Kim chattering about something else too. That's no big deal, but then there's 3 or 4 others observing that chatter. That can get really complicated, and I encourage you just to contemplate that when you sit down to that keyboard or pick up your phone. It's not going to be easy because it's going to be a change in the way you've been doing things, and you don't want to undo something important, because you're all going to do important work here. You don't want to undo important work by just making a mistake in that stuff. Same thing with when you're speaking to city council. I know a lot of you speak at city council, and that's okay. That's great. I love it. But if there are 4 or 5 of you in the audience, I don't know how you get around a Brown Act violation. If 2 of you are speaking on the same subject and there are 3 more listening, is that not some kind of a Brown Act complication at least? I asked Tarquin about that. He says he didn't think so, but he wasn't sure. Because this is new ground. Ralph M. Brown never contemplated this kind of communication ability when he put together the Brown Act. And yes, there will be people that will be all over you if you make a mistake, or if you make a perceived mistake. In the past, that might have been me sometimes, but not anymore. But thank you all very much for what you're doing. I know how much time it's going to take, and I really appreciate it. The Fairview Park's worth protecting. And thank you all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Mr. West, for making my comments for me, my closing comments. And regarding the council meeting, it is just kind of a gray area, and it's depending on what you're speaking about. So if 4 of you stand up and you all speak about the same item, and it kind of pertains to Fairview Park, it's probably going to be a problem. But if one of you stands up and talks under general public comments about parking concerns, one of you talks about the small lot ordinance, one of you talks about a sober living home, then that's not anything, because that's not under your jurisdiction, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. What you really need to be concerned about is anything that potentially concerns Fairview Park.
So is that the case even if it's not premeditated? And then that question raises the question that if 4 people talk about to not have be premeditated, then aren't they violating the law because they are talking about what not to talk about?
Well, again, we just recommend that 4 committee members don't get together and talk about, hey, let's coordinate what we're going to talk about, yes. But if you want to, there's something on the city council agenda and you want to go talk about it as an individual, then, and a lot of people, you'll see other commission members and committee members come and speak. They say, I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Commission, but I'm speaking here as an individual on this certain item that's not even pertaining to the Parks and Rec Commission.
Gotcha.
So just be concerned, and you're all very passionate, and you all want to just get started and do things, and so we all understand that, and that's what we appreciate the most, but we do have to just be very, very careful about that. And then with that, at your next meeting, then you will be selecting your chair and your vice chair, and then the chair and vice chair will work with Mr. Mejia and Ms. D'Agosta on the format of your agendas and agendizing items. And public comments can be more at the front, more at the end. The committee can decide on what works best for the committee at that point, okay? So that'll all be coming down the pipe for you. And then any comments, Ms. D'Agosta or Mr. Mejia?
No comments from me?
No, I just look forward to our next meeting.
Okay. Any last minute questions or comments?
Should we have Barry introduce himself, or?
Sure, I can introduce.
Sure, thank
I
you.
didn't know Barry was sitting here, so I haven't met
That's
him
okay,
yet.
that's,
Good evening, my name is Barry Nerhus. I'm the contracted biologist that's been managing Fairview Park since 2009 with the initial design and restoration of the lower wetlands. And I also am involved with the Institute for Conservation Research and Education with the community programs and community-based restoration that we've been doing for the past 2 years. So I'm very excited to help with the committee with anything you guys need from my experience or knowledge from the, on the ecological side. Obviously, I work with the city staff, but this is like an extra arm, which I will try and make it to as many of these meetings as possible and provide information, if needed. So, thank you.
All right. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you all in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.